right, so we're going to finish up section 8.2 by coming up with our rules for adding integers. Based on the type of problem that we have, we're going to either be adding integers that either have the same sign or different signs. So if our integers have the same sign, we're going to add the absolute value of our integers. Then we're going to use the common sign in our answer. When we're dealing with integers that have different signs and we're adding them, instead of adding, we're going to subtract. And then we're going to use the larger sign in the answer. Right, so what this means is as we're going through and we're thinking about these, that's going to mean that positive plus positive is going to give us a positive answer, right? And that shouldn't be any surprise. 4 plus 5, both of them are positive. Positive 4 plus positive 5 is going to give us a positive 9. But what this also tells us is that if we add two negative numbers, it's going to stay negative, right? So negative plus negative is still negative, right? And we can see this if we go back up to example 3a, right? We had a negative number here, we had a negative 3, and then we moved to the left 2 more, and we ended up with a negative 5, right? So using our rule, right, we're going to add the absolute values of our two numbers. So 3 plus 2 gives us 5, right? And then we use the common sign in the answer, right? So negative 3 plus negative 2 gives us a negative 5. Right? So example 3a is an example of adding our integers with the same sign. So we're just going to make a little note here. Right? This rule comes from 3a. Again, positive plus positive stays positive. That's easy to remember, right? That's no different than anything else that we've seen. But negative plus negative stays negative. Right? Now, when we're dealing with numbers that have different signs, right, what we're going to do is we're going to actually subtract these two numbers. Right? So we're going to subtract the absolute values of the numbers, and then we're going to use the larger sign in the answer. So that means that if we have a positive number plus a negative number, well, that's really going to depend. It depends on what our numbers have, right? Order doesn't make any difference in here, right? So if we have a negative first plus a positive second, the order has absolutely nothing to do with it. What this has to do with is the size of our numbers. So if we go back up here and we look at example 3b and c, well, we have negative 6 plus positive 8. So according to my rule tells us that we should subtract these. Okay, well, 8 minus 6, we always use subtraction, larger minus smaller. 8 minus 6 gives us 2. Our larger number was positive, so our answer was a positive 2. Now, if we look at example C, 3 and negative 7, different signs. So we're going to subtract those. Right? 7 minus 3 gives us 4. Right? Then in this case, our larger number is negative, so our answer is negative 4. Right? So what that means is if your larger number is positive, you go to the right more than you go to the left, so you get a positive answer. If your larger number is negative, you move to the left more and you end up with a negative answer. So as we're thinking about and as we're dealing with our rules, right, if we have the same sign numbers, we're going to add them, use our common sign in the answer. Different signed integers, we're going to subtract them, and we're going to use the number with the larger sign in the answer. Right? So we see that in example 3b and 3c. Right? Now the other thing to mention down here at the bottom, our additive inverse property. If we have opposites, if we have exactly the same number that has one positive and one negative, they're going to cancel each other out. Right? A positive and a negative of the same number are always going to give us 0. Positive 5 and negative 5 cancel each other out and give us 0. Right? So we're going to work through some examples using these rules. All right, so example 4, we're going to add numbers that have the same sign. Right? When we're adding numbers that have the same sign, remember that we are going to add our absolute values, and then we are going to use our common sign in the answer. So, positive 7 plus 4, right? Everything's positive, these turn out to be a positive 11. Now, if you wanted to, you could put the plus sign in front of there. If you don't want to, you don't have to. That's up to you. Right? So as we're looking at this, right, in this case, positive plus positive gave us a positive answer. Now if we look at B, negative 5 plus negative 8. Well, we're going to add these. 5 plus 8 gives us 13. Right? Then, since they're both negative, we're going to use our common sign, which is a negative sign, in our answer. Right? So negative plus negative stays negative. Right? In example A, we're just constantly moving to the right on our number line. In example B, we're constantly moving to the left on our number line. Right? And as we're going through and we're thinking about these, right, our positive plus positive stays positive, negative plus negative stays negative. One other thing that you can do is you can always think about money. Right? You have a positive bank account balance and you deposit more money, your bank account balance is still positive. Right? If you have a negative bank account balance and you spend more money, well, your bank account balance is still negative. Right, so for this last one, same thing. Negative 35 plus negative 52, they both have the same sign, so we're going to add them. That's going to give us 87. Right? And then they're both negative, so our answer stays negative. Right. If we are adding numbers that have different signs, right? Instead of adding this time, right, we are going to be thinking subtract. Right? So we're going to subtract, and then we're going to use the sign of the larger number in our answer. Right? What this means is if we're adding a positive and a negative, right, well, we don't know what the answer is going to be until we compare our numbers. All right, so 7 plus negative 5. So we're going to subtract these. 7 minus 5 gives us 2. Our larger number is positive, so we're going to have a positive 2 for an answer. Again, you don't necessarily need to write the plus sign in front of your positive answers. You can always leave it off. Just make sure for your negatives, right, that you have a negative sign in front. Right, 9 plus negative 15. Right, well, negative 15 is our larger number. Right, we're going to subtract. 15 minus 9 gives us 6. Our larger number is negative, so our answer is going to be negative 6. Right, negative 4 plus 11. 11 is our larger number. 11 minus 4 gives us 7. 11 is positive, so we have a plus 7. Negative 37 plus 49. 49 is larger. Right? 49 is larger means our answer is going to be positive. And if we do 49 minus 37, we get 12. Right? So depending on what our larger number is, that's going to tell us our sign of our answer. So whether we're adding numbers of same sign or whether we're adding numbers of different signs, right, that's going to tell us, do we want to add or do we want to subtract? Do we use the common sign or do we use the larger sign? These last two examples at the bottom, we have additive inverses. We're adding a number and its opposite. Right? Anytime we add a number and its opposite, they cancel each other out and they leave us with 0. Notice that in example A here and some of the other ones up above, we have our negative numbers in parentheses. The reason we generally do that is so that way we don't have two symbols right next to each other. So instead of putting a plus and a minus right next to each other here, we separate it with our parentheses. So that's one key thing to kind of point out. In these examples, those parentheses that we see in those examples above, they're not used to indicate order of operations, right? They're just separating our signs as we're going through and doing our addition. So section 8.2, again, you want to do some practice adding your integers with same signs, with different signs. Try to use the rules, practice with the rules. If you're not as comfortable with the rules, throw dollar signs in front of them. Right? Imagine what's going on in your checking account. That always helps. Or you can always use a number line. Right? Sketch a little number line in the corner of your paper or on a sheet of scratch paper and use that to kind of count back and forth to the left and to the right based on the type of problem that you have.